The Cthar Dominion stretched across 17 star systems, a vast empire built on the ruins of a dozen conquered civilizations. For over 3 centuries, they had expanded relentlessly outward from their homeworld of Kth-Varn, leaving subjugated planets and shattered resistance movements in their wake. Their technological superiority was evident in their imposing warships, whose silhouettes alone were enough to make planetary governments surrender without firing a shot. Their philosophy was simple and brutal. The strong ruled, the weak served or perished. High War Master Jakral stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Dominator's Fury, his scaled skin reflecting the blue glow of the tactical displays surrounding him. 7 feet tall, with corded muscles beneath his ceremonial armor, he cut an imposing figure even among his own kind. 4 campaign medals adorned his chestplate, each representing a civilization brought to heel under his command. His reputation for tactical brilliance was matched only by his notorious cruelty toward those who dared resist. "What is the status of our fleet?" Jakral demanded, his voice a low rumble that carried across the bridge. "All vessels report combat readiness at optimal levels. High War Master." His second-in-command, Subcommander Rekvos, replied with a deep bow. 217 warships await your command. The jump to the Haven system can commence within the hour. Jakral's lipless mouth curved into what passed for a smile among the Cthar. "Excellent. This human colony has grown too comfortable, too prosperous. Their resources will serve the Dominion well." The Haven system, known to humans as Kepler 186f, had been colonized 73 years earlier. What had begun as a mining outpost had blossomed into a thriving colony of nearly 8 million people. The planet's rich mineral deposits and strategic position made it an important hub for human expansion in that sector of space. Under the leadership of Governor Alara Vance, Haven had developed its own distinct culture, fiercely independent, resourceful, and proud of their self-sufficiency at the edge of human space. Jakral had studied the reports on Haven with interest. Their defensive capabilities were modest. A small fleet of older warships, orbital defense platforms, and a planetary defense force. Nothing that could withstand the might of the Cthar Dominion. But intelligence suggested the humans valued this colony highly. Taking it would not only provide valuable resources, but also demonstrate to the humans the futility of resistance against the Dominion's expansion. "High War Master," Rekvos interrupted his thoughts. "Long-range sensors have detected a civilian transport vessel attempting to leave the Haven system. It appears to be a refugee ship, designating itself as Starlight Beacon. Shall we allow it to pass?" Jakral considered this for a moment, his yellow eyes narrowing to slits. "No. Target their engines and communication array. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Yet. But High War Master, our scans show over 3,000 civilians aboard, mostly families. There are no weapons. Did I ask for your assessment, Subcommander?" Jakral's voice dropped dangerously low. Rekvos lowered his head immediately. "No, High War Master. Targeting their engines and communications now." Minutes later, the bridge crew watched as plasma torpedoes streaked across space, striking the helpless transport with surgical precision. The vessel's engines flared and died, leaving it drifting in the cold void. "Open a channel to the disabled vessel," Jakral commanded. The main screen flickered to life, showing the transport's bridge. A human female in a captain's uniform stood at the center, her face pale, but composed despite the chaos visible behind her. Crew members tending to injured passengers, smoke billowing from damaged consoles. "This is Captain Mira Chun of the civilian transport, Starlight Beacon. We are a non-combatant vessel carrying refugees. Please render assistance." "Captain," Jakral interrupted, "you have entered a military exclusion zone without authorization. Your vessel is now property of the Cthar Dominion." The captain's expression hardened. "We received no warning. There has been no declaration of war or exclusion zone in this system. We demand safe passage as guaranteed under the Galactic Conventions." Jakral laughed, the sound like rocks grinding together. "Your conventions mean nothing to the Dominion. You will serve as an example to your colony. He turned to his weapons officer. Target their life support systems. Leave the communications functional. The captain's eyes widened in horror. There are children aboard. Please. The screen went dark as another volley of torpedoes struck the vessel. Jacques Rau watched dispassionately as the ship's life support signatures began to fail one by one. Open a channel to the Haven Colonial Government. Ordered. After a moment of silence, the screen displayed a woman in her early 50s, with short gray hair and piercing blue eyes. She wore a simple black uniform with a silver insignia, the mark of Haven's governor. I am Governor Alara Vance of Haven Colony. To whom am I speaking? Her voice was steady, but Jacques Rau noted the tension in her jaw, the slight tremor in her hands. She already knew what had happened to the transport. High War Master Jacques Rau of the Cthar Dominion. Your colony has been selected for incorporation into our empire. As a demonstration of mercy, I offer you terms of surrender. Relinquish all military assets. Transfer control of your government and resource operations to our administrators, and your population will be permitted to live as productive subjects of the Dominion. Governor Vance's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. And if we decline your generous offer? Jacques Rau gestured, and the view screen split to show the crippled transport vessel, now venting atmosphere into space. The Starlight beacon carried 3,427 of your people. They are dying as we speak. This is but a taste of what awaits Haven should you resist. For several long seconds, Governor Vance said nothing. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, cooler, flatter, devoid of emotion. High War Master, we have received distress signals from the Starlight beacon. After what you've done to them, you have classified yourself as a murderer. Her eyes met his directly through the screen. And High War Master, humans don't negotiate with murderers. The bridge fell silent. Jacques Rau felt an unfamiliar sensation, something between surprise and outrage. No conquered species had ever dared to speak to him this way. You misunderstand your situation, Governor, he growled. I am not offering negotiations. I am granting you the privilege of surrender. I understand perfectly, Vance replied, her voice still eerily calm. And so do you now? The Cthar Dominion has made its choice. So have we. She reached forward, and the transmission cut. Jacques Rau stared at the blank screen, momentarily stunned by the human's audacity. Then rage overtook him. He slammed his armored fist against the command console, cracking its surface. Prepare all forces for immediate invasion, he roared. I want that colony reduced to ashes. Every human will kneel before me or die screaming. The bridge erupted into activity as officers relayed his orders throughout the fleet. Jacques Rau returned to his command chair, seething. He would teach these humans the cost of defiance. The arrogant Governor Vance would watch her world burn before he granted her the mercy of death. The invasion begins in 6 hours, he announced. Governor Vance will learn what happens to those who insult the Dominion. Subcommandez vos approches cautieusement. High War Master, shall we destroy the disabled transport now? Jacques Rau's eyes gleamed with malice. No, let them die slowly as their air runs out. Let the colony watch and understand their helplessness. What Jacques Rau couldn't see was the flurry of activity taking place on Haven below. In a heavily fortified bunker beneath the capital city, Governor Vance strode into a war room where 24 military and civilian leaders awaited her. The Cthar have made their move, she announced without preamble. They've disabled the Starlight beacon and murdered civilians as a show of force. I've given Jacques Rau our answer. A murmur ran through the assembled leaders. General Eris Thorne, commander of Haven's defense forces, stepped forward. A tall man with dark skin and close-cropped gray hair. His face bore the scars of past conflicts. You told him we won't negotiate? I told him humans don't negotiate with murderers, Vance confirmed. Exactly as we planned. Thorne nodded grimly. Then it's time to activate Scylla. All units are in position and awaiting orders. What about the Starlight beacon? Asked a woman with the insignia of Haven's Medical Corps. Rescue operations are already underway, Thorne replied. Stealth shuttles launched the moment the Cthar opened fire. They're using the debris field for cover. Vance turned to a large tactical display showing the approaching Cathar fleet. Ladies and gentlemen, we've prepared for this day for 15 years. The Cathar believe they're facing a helpless colony. They expect us to either surrender immediately or mount a conventional defense that they can overwhelm with superior numbers. Her eyes hardened. We're going to show them how humans fight when pushed to the edge. General Thorne activated a holographic display showing detailed schematics of Cathar vessels. Remember, the Cathar see war as a test of strength against strength. They expect us to meet their fleet head-on, to defend our orbital platforms, to fight according to established conventions. He smiled grimly. We would do none of those things. The invasion began exactly as Jacques had planned. The massive Cathar fleet surged into the Haven system in perfect formation, weapon systems charging as they approached the planet. The colony's meager defensive fleet moved to intercept, vastly outnumbered and outgunned. From his command chair, Jacques watched with satisfaction as his forces tore through Haven's orbital defenses. The humans fought bravely but futilely, their ships exploding one after another under the Dominion's superior firepower. Pathetic, he remarked to Rekvos. They should have surrendered when given the chance. They're fighting with unexpected coordination, High War Master, Rekvos observed. Their tactics seem designed to delay rather than defeat us. It makes no difference, Jacques dismissed the concern. Our victory is inevitable. Prepare the first wave of ground forces for deployment once the orbital defenses are neutralized. What Jacques didn't realize was that Haven's conventional defense was merely a distraction. Deep within the asteroid belt that ringed the system, hundreds of small, stealthy vessels waited silently. Unlike the colony's official military vessels, these were unmarked, heavily modified civilian craft, mining ships repurposed as bombers, cargo haulers outfitted with EMP weapons, research vessels carrying biological payloads. General Thorne stood in the command center of one such vessel, watching the battle unfold on tactical displays. The Cathar are committing their forces exactly as predicted, he noted. Their formation is focused on breaking through our defensive line. Arrogant bastards, muttered his executive officer. They're not even bothering with proper flank protection. Thorne nodded. That's Jacques reputation, overwhelming force applied directly. He doesn't respect us enough to consider we might have a strategy beyond direct confrontation. He turned to his communications officer. Signal all Scilly units. Phase 1 begins now. Throughout the asteroid belt, engines flared to life as Haven's hidden fleet emerged from concealment. But instead of moving to reinforce the main defensive line, these vessels scattered in all directions, targeting the flanks and rear of the Cathar formation. On the bridge of the Dominator's Fury, an officer reported urgently to Jacques. High War Master, we're detecting multiple small vessels emerging from the asteroid belt. Jacques waved dismissively. A desperate last attempt. Dispatch our rear guard to deal with them. They're not engaging directly, sir, the officer continued, confusion evident in his voice. They're conducting hit-and-run attacks against our supply ships and screening vessels, then retreating back into the asteroid field. Before Jacques could respond, another officer called out, communications disruption reported across multiple channels. Our fleet coordination networks are experiencing interference. For the first time, a flicker of concern crossed Jacques' face. Source: unknown, High War Master. The disruptions appear to be coming from multiple points throughout the system. As the Cathar fleet pushed toward Haven, more reports flooded in. Supply vessels attacked by invisible assailants. Communication relays mysteriously failing. Automated defense systems targeting friendly ships. What should have been a straightforward conquest was becoming increasingly chaotic. 3 days into the invasion, the Cathar had established orbital superiority around Haven, but at a higher cost than anticipated. Dozens of support vessels had been destroyed by the humans' guerrilla tactics, and communication difficulties were hampering coordination between battle groups. Jacques, growing increasingly frustrated, ordered the commencement of ground operations. Dropships descended toward Haven's surface, carrying thousands of Cthar warriors eager for combat. The initial landings targeted Haven's major cities. In the capital, New Anchorage, Cthar forces secured the spaceport and government district with minimal resistance. Jackrau, watching from orbit, felt his confidence returning. "See how quickly they fold when faced with real combat," he told his officers. "These humans talk boldly but lack the courage to defend their homes." Yet as Cthar forces pushed deeper into human territory, they encountered neither surrender nor conventional resistance, but something far more troubling. In New Anchorage, an entire battalion suddenly reported severe neurological symptoms: disorientation, hallucinations, muscle weakness. Within hours, half the warriors were incapacitated. Similar reports came in from other landing zones. Cthar warriors collapsed in the middle of operations. Some turned on their squad mates in bouts of paranoid psychosis. Medical officers were baffled by the rapidly spreading affliction. Biological warfare. The chief medical officer finally reported to Jackrau. "The humans have deployed some kind of engineered pathogen that targets our neural biochemistry. It appears to be transmitted through air handling systems." "Impossible," Jackrau snarled. "Our intelligence indicated the humans possess no such technology." "The evidence suggests otherwise, High War Master. The pathogen appears designed specifically for Cthar physiology. It has no effect on humans." Jackrau's yellow eyes narrowed to slits. "Order all ground forces to seal their armor and switch to internal air supplies." "Already done, sir, but many units were exposed before we identified the threat, and the pathogen seems capable of penetrating standard filtration systems." Even as they struggled with the biological attack, the Cthar faced mounting electronic warfare. Autonomous weapons platforms turned against their operators. Navigation systems directed drop ships into natural obstacles. Communication networks broadcast false orders. On the fifth day of the invasion, Jackrau received a disturbing report from the occupation force in New Anchorage. "High War Master, the civilian population is not behaving as expected," the ground commander reported hesitantly. "Explain," Jackrau demanded. "There is no panic, no pleading for mercy. They offer no resistance, but neither do they cooperate. They simply watch us." Even under threat of execution, they reveal nothing about their defense systems or government structure. "Increase the pressure," Jackrau ordered. "Public executions. Destroy their cultural centers. Show them the price of defiance." The commander shifted uncomfortably. "We've tried such measures, High War Master. It doesn't break their resolve. If anything, it strengthens it. And afterward, accidents happen. Equipment failures. Unexplained explosions. Our warriors found dead with no signs of struggle." Jackrau slammed his fist on his armrest. "These are primitives. They cannot stand against the might of the Dominion." Yet with each passing day, the situation deteriorated. The strange ailment affecting Cthar troops spread despite all containment efforts. Critical systems throughout the fleet experienced cascading failures. Small human vessels continued to harass supply lines, appearing from nowhere to strike vulnerable targets before disappearing again. In his war room beneath New Anchorage, General Thorne monitored the progress of Operation Scylla with grim satisfaction. "The nanovirus is exceeding performance projections," reported Dr. Eliza Sharin, chief of Haven's Biodefense Division. "Infection rates among Cthar forces have reached 60% in primary landing zones. Their combat effectiveness is degraded by approximately 75%. "In our cyber warfare division?" Thorne asked. A young woman with the insignia of Haven's Digital Operations Command brought up a holographic display. "We've compromised 43% of Cthar network infrastructure. Their command and control systems are operating at reduced efficiency. We're feeding false intelligence reports to their high command, suggesting human reinforcements are en route." Thor nodded approvingly. "And the civilian resistance?" "Performing exactly as trained," an older man replied. "Passive non-cooperation, targeted sabotage." psychological warfare tactics. The Kthar are becoming increasingly paranoid and isolated. Excellent. Thorne studied the tactical displays showing Kthar positions throughout the system. Jacral is growing desperate. His supply lines are compromised, his ground forces are being incapacitated, and he's losing control of the information environment. He pointed to the imposing silhouette of the Dominator's fury. Now we prepare for Phase 3. It's time to draw the beast into our trap. On the 8th day of what was supposed to have been a swift conquest, Jacral faced a crisis. A third of his fleet was operating at reduced capacity due to mysterious system failures. Ground operations had stalled as troops succumbed to the human bioweapon. Supply lines were under constant harassment. High War Master, Subcommander Rekvos approached cautiously. Our intelligence division has intercepted communications suggesting human reinforcements will arrive within 48 hours. Jacral's scales darkened with rage. Why were we not informed of these reinforcements before the invasion? Our pre-invasion intelligence showed no significant human forces in this sector, Rekvos replied. It appears they've been deliberately concealing their military capabilities. For the first time since the campaign began, doubt crept into Jacral's mind. Had he underestimated these humans? No, they were still technologically inferior, still outnumbered. This was merely an unexpected complication. We must secure victory before reinforcements arrive, he decided. Concentrate our fleet for a decisive strike against their planetary defense grid. I will lead the assault personally aboard the Dominator's Fury. High War Master, I must advise caution, Rekvos said. Our flagship's movement will be predictable. The humans have demonstrated unexpected tactical sophistication. Enough, Jacral roared. I will not be lectured on tactics by a subordinate. The humans have been lucky, nothing more. We will crush them with overwhelming force, as the Dominion has always done. Hours later, the Dominator's Fury led a battle group of 60 warships toward Haven's main defensive installation, a heavily armed space station in geosynchronous orbit above New Anchorage. Intelligence suggested it housed the colony's command and control systems. As the Kthar formation approached their target, sensors detected unusual energy readings from a nearby nebula. High War Master, recommend we dispatch scout vessels to investigate, the tactical officer suggested. Unnecessary, Jacral dismissed. It's simply another attempt to distract us from our primary objective. Maintain course. As the fleet entered the nebula's outer boundary, proximity alarms suddenly blared across the bridge. Multiple detonations detected, the tactical officer shouted. Mines! They've seeded the approach with cloaked spatial mines. Before Jacral could respond, the view screens showed explosions rippling through his formation as vessel after vessel triggered the hidden weapons. The nebula's ionized gases, which had concealed the mines from sensors, now obscured visibility, creating chaos as ships maneuvered desperately to avoid collisions and further detonations. Get us out of this trap, Jacral commanded. Attempting to calculate safe passage, the navigation officer replied, fingers flying over his console. The mine pattern it's hurting us, High War Master. The only clear vector leads deeper into the nebula. Jacral hesitated. To retreat would be to admit failure. To advance blindly could be catastrophic. Find another path. There isn't one, sir. We've lost 12 vessels already. Then we go forward, Jacral decided. All vessels, follow the flagship's course. We will punish these humans for their treachery. The Kthar formation pushed deeper into the nebula, following the only path not blocked by mines. The ionized gases grew thicker, further degrading sensors and communications. Ship-to-ship coordination became increasingly difficult. High War Master, we've lost contact with our rear guard, the communications officer reported. Before Jacral could respond, the tactical officer called out new contacts. Multiple vessels emerging from the nebula all around us. The view screen showed dozens of small craft appearing from the concealing gases, the same hit-and-run attackers that had harassed their supply lines for days. Ignore them, Jacral ordered. They're trying to divert us from our primary target. Maintain course for the defensive station. But the small vessels didn't attack conventionally. Instead, they released swarms of even smaller objects, barely larger than torpedoes, that streaked toward the Cathar warships. Boarding craft, the tactical officer realized too late. They're launching boarding parties. Throughout the fleet, alarms sounded as the tiny vessels attached themselves to Cathar hulls, cutting through armor with focused plasma beams. Even the Dominator's Fury was targeted, multiple breaches reported across its vast hull. Intruder alert. Security teams to all breach points. Jacques Rau roared, drawing his ceremonial blade. How dare they attempt to board the flagship of the Dominion? As security teams rushed to repel boarders, the ship's systems began to fail one by one. Lights flickered. Weapons went offline. Life support fluctuated. Massive cyber attack in progress, reported the systems officer, panic evident in his voice. They've introduced some kind of adaptive viral algorithm into our networks. Jacques Rau's world was collapsing around him. His invincible fleet was in disarray. His flagship was under attack from within and without. And still, echoing in his mind were the human governor's words. Humans don't negotiate with murderers. Deep within the Dominator's Fury, a team of 12 humans in stealth combat armor moved silently through maintenance corridors. Unlike the other boarding parties creating diversions throughout the ship, this team had a specific target, the bridge. Team Alpha in position, whispered Commander Maya Santos, leader of Haven's Special Operations Group. Bridge access point secured. Preparing for breach. Understood, Alpha. General Thorne's voice replied through a secure comm link. Remember, primary objective is to capture High War Master Jacques Rau, if possible. Secondary objective is to disable fleet command systems. Copy that, Santos acknowledged, checking her weapon. A modified pulse rifle loaded with nanite-infused stun, rounds designed specifically for Cathar physiology. Breaching in 3, 2, 1. On the bridge, Jacques Rau was receiving increasingly desperate reports from throughout his fleet. Ships lost contact or reporting. Critical failures. Boarding parties penetrating deep into vessel interiors. Crew members collapsing from the mysterious ailment that had plagued ground forces. This cannot be happening, he muttered. His earlier confidence evaporated. These are mere humans. Primitives. How could they? An explosion rocked the bridge as the main access doors blew inward. Through the smoke poured armored figures, their weapons firing with precision. Bridge crew fell in rapid succession, incapacitated by the specialized stun rounds. Jacques Rau roared in fury, charging the nearest attacker with his ceremonial blade raised high. The human, smaller than him by half, sidestepped with surprising agility and fired directly into the High War Master's chest. The impact sent him staggering backward, but his personal shield absorbed most of the energy. The commander, Santos shouted. Focus fire. Multiple weapons converged on Jacques Rau. His shield flared and failed under the concentrated assault. A second later, a round struck him directly in the neck, and he felt a burning sensation as the nanites entered his bloodstream. His limbs grew suddenly heavy, unresponsive. The blade fell from nerveless fingers as he collapsed to his knees. Impossible, he gasped, the world growing dim around him. We are the Dominion. The last thing Jacques Rau saw before consciousness fled was a human face looking down at him through an armored visor, eyes cold and unflinching. When Jacques Rau awoke, he found himself restrained in what appeared to be a medical facility. His armor had been removed, and monitoring devices were attached to his scaled skin. Two humans stood nearby, a male and a female, watching him intently. He's regaining consciousness, the female said, her tone clinical. Vitals are stabilizing. Jacques Rau struggled against his restraints, fury overcoming disorientation. Release me immediately. Do you know who I am? High War Master Jacques Rau of the Cathar Dominion, the male replied calmly. Jacques Rau recognized him from intelligence briefings. General Eris Thorne, Haven's military commander. Architect of the Belsarian genocide. Conqueror of the Novan Alliance. And now, prisoner of war. This is outrageous. Jacques snarled. The Dominion will reduce your world to ash for this insult. Your fleet is in disarray, High War Master, Thorn continued, unmoved by the threat. The Dominator's fury has been captured intact. 47 of your vessels have been destroyed or disabled. The remainder have retreated from his system. He stepped closer, studying Jacques with cold curiosity. The Cthar Dominion has suffered its first major defeat in 3 centuries. Quite historic, really. Jacques fell silent, processing this impossible information. His invincible fleet, defeated by a single human colony? It couldn't be true. It must be some trick, some psychological warfare tactic. You're lying, he finally said, but doubt had crept into his voice. Look for yourself. Thorn activated a wall display showing space above Haven. The wreckage of Cthar vessels drifted silently in orbit. The Dominator's fury, once the pride of the Dominion, now flew the Haven colonial flag alongside human vessels. How? The question escaped Jacques lips before he could stop it. How could primitives defeat the Dominion? Thorn smiled thinly. You made a fundamental mistake, High War Master. You judged us by your standards, believing that real strength lies only in superior firepower and direct confrontation. When you murdered the civilians on the Starlight Beacon, you thought you were demonstrating power. In reality, you were signing your own defeat. He gestured to the female beside him. Dr. Sharin, would you explain to our guest why his forces began falling ill? The woman stepped forward. We've been studying Cthar biology for nearly 2 decades, High War Master. The nanovirus that incapacitated your troops was specifically engineered to target the neural implants all Cthar warriors received during training, the ones that enhance your natural aggression and pain tolerance. We simply reprogrammed them. Impossible, Jacques whispered. Our medical technology is far superior to yours. Perhaps, she acknowledged. But our motivation was stronger. When facing extinction, humans become extraordinarily creative. And the system's failures throughout my fleet? Thorn crossed his arms. We've been intercepting and analyzing Cthar communications for years. Your encryption was impressive, but not impenetrable. Once we understood your command protocols, creating viruses to target them was relatively straightforward. Jacques world was collapsing around him. Everything he had believed about human capabilities, about his own invincibility, was being systematically destroyed. Why am I alive? He finally asked. Why not simply kill me? Because this isn't over, Thorn replied bluntly. The Cthar Dominion remains a threat to human worlds. You're going to help us ensure they never attempt another invasion. I will tell you nothing, Jacques hissed. I would rather die than betray the Dominion. We don't need your cooperation, High War Master. In fact, we don't need anything from you at all. Thorn's voice hardened. You're not a prisoner of war. You're evidence. Before Jacques could respond, the door opened and Governor Alara Vance entered. She looked tired but unbowed, her eyes fixing immediately on the restrained Cthar commander. High War Master, she acknowledged coldly. I see you're awake. Jacques stared at her with undisguised hatred. Governor Vance, have you come to gloat over your temporary victory? I've come to inform you of your future, she replied. In 3 days, representatives from the Galactic Federation will arrive to document the war crimes committed by Cthar forces under your command, beginning with the murder of civilians aboard the Starlight Beacon. You will be transferred to their custody for trial before an interstellar tribunal. The Dominion does not recognize the authority of your Federation. Jacques snarled. That's irrelevant, Vance continued calmly. What matters is that every spacefaring civilization will see the evidence of Cthar atrocities and witness how decisively humans defeated you when provoked. The myth of Cthar invincibility ends here. For the first time, genuine fear crept into Jacques heart. Not fear of death or punishment, but of humiliation, of becoming the commander who had brought disgrace upon the mighty Dominion. You should have negotiated when you had the chance, he muttered bitterly. Vance's expression didn't change. As I told you, High War Master, humans don't negotiate with murderers. We eliminate threats. Remember that if you ever regain your freedom, News of the Cathar defeat spread rapidly throughout the galaxy. What had been expected to be a routine conquest of a minor human colony had instead become a humiliating disaster for one of the most feared military powers in known space. The trial of High War Master Jakrao became a sensation across multiple worlds. For the first time, the inner workings of the Dominion's conquest strategies were exposed to public scrutiny. Evidence of atrocities committed across dozens of subjugated worlds came to light. Former vassal species of the Dominion, emboldened by Cathar's weakness, began to rebel against their oppressors. In the aftermath, the Cathar Dominion entered a period of internal turmoil. The High Command, humiliated by the defeat, turned on itself. Several factions blamed each other for the intelligence failures that had led to the disastrous Haven campaign. Civil war erupted in 3 systems as opportunistic commanders sought to carve out their own territories from the weakened empire. On Haven, reconstruction began immediately. The colony that had successfully repelled a galactic superpower found itself flooded with immigration requests, investment opportunities, and diplomatic overtures. Governor Vance and General Thorn became celebrated figures throughout human space. The leaders who had proven that humanity would not be easy prey for expansionist empires. 2 years after the failed invasion, Jacques Krall sat in his cell on the Federation prison planet of Tartarus 7. Once the feared High War Master of the Cathar Dominion, he had been reduced to prisoner #7291, serving a life sentence for crimes against sentient beings. His daily routine never varied. Wake, exercise in his cell, eat the bland rations provided, and spend hours staring at the wall. The Federation had denied his request for honorable execution. They wanted him to live with his failure. On this particular day, however, his routine was interrupted. A guard appeared at his cell door. "Prisoner 7291, you have a visitor." Jacques Krall looked up in surprise. In 2 years, no one had visited him. Not his former subordinates, not Federation officials, no one. He was led to a sterile visitation room, where a single figure awaited him. To his shock, it was General Eris Thorn. "General," Jacques Krall acknowledged, his once commanding voice now hollow. "Have you come to witness my degradation firsthand?" Thorn regarded him impassively. "I've come to understand." "Understand what?" Jacques Krall settled into the chair opposite the human, his restraints clanking against the metal table. "What you've learned," Thorn replied. "It's been 2 years. I wonder if you comprehend yet what happened at Haven." Jacques Krall's yellow eyes narrowed. "You had superior intelligence. You prepared specifically for our invasion. You exploited weaknesses we didn't know existed." "That's tactically correct," Thorn nodded, "but fundamentally wrong. Do you remember what Governor Vance said to you before the invasion began?" "Humans don't negotiate with murderers," Jacques Krall quoted, the words still bitter in his mouth. A meaningless sentiment. All conquering species must eliminate resistance. Thorn leaned forward. "That wasn't just a statement of moral principle, War Master. It was a warning about human nature that you failed to understand. When we're pushed to extinction, we don't follow rules of engagement. We don't respect military traditions. We don't fight fair. You used dishonorable tactics," Jacques Krall growled. "We used effective tactics," Thorn corrected. The Cathar Dominion had conquered 17 systems through superior firepower and conventional warfare. You expected us to fight the same way, to meet strength with strength and lose honorably. Instead, you poisoned my warriors and hacked our systems like cowards." Thorn's expression hardened. "Instead, we studied you for years, identified your weaknesses, and struck precisely where you were vulnerable. You saw our technological inferiority and assumed intellectual inferiority as well. That arrogance was your downfall." Jacques Krall fell silent, unable to counter the human's assessment. "The Cathar Dominion is collapsing," Thorn continued. 3 systems have declared independence. Your former vassal species are rising up. The Federation is supporting liberation movements across your territory. "Why tell me this?" Jacques Krall asked. "To torture me with the fall of my empire?" "To help you understand the true meaning of Governor Vance's words," Thorn replied. "When you murdered those civilians, you didn't demonstrate strength. You revealed yourself as an existential threat that had to be eliminated by any means necessary. You forced us to abandon restraint. Thorne stood up to leave, but paused at the door. The Federation Council meets next month to consider intervention in the former Dominion territories. I'll be testifying about the Cathar threat. I wanted to see for myself what became of the mighty High War Master. And what do you see, human? Jacral asked bitterly. A warning, Thorne replied simply, for anyone else who might underestimate humanity when our survival is at stake. After Thorne's visit, Jacral spent many sleepless nights contemplating the human's words. His people had conquered countless worlds across 3 centuries, yet they had never encountered a species quite like humans. Other races had superior technology, greater numbers, even more natural physical advantages, but none had demonstrated the humans' particular combination of adaptability, ruthlessness, and unity when threatened. 6 months later, news reached Tartarus 7 that the last remnants of the Cathar Dominion had collapsed. The once mighty empire had fractured into competing territories, many now under Federation protection. The name that had inspired terror across 17 star systems for centuries had become a historical footnote, a cautionary tale about the dangers of imperial overreach. And throughout the galaxy, diplomatic envoys from a dozen species carried a new understanding of humanity. The seemingly unassuming bipeds from Earth were not to be trifled with. Their technological development was accelerating rapidly, their colonies expanding throughout unclaimed systems. But most importantly, they had demonstrated a principle that gave even the most aggressive species pause. Humans don't negotiate with murderers. On the 10th anniversary of what became known as the Haven Defense, a memorial was unveiled in New Anchorage. It depicted not weapons or warriors, but the civilian transport Starlight Beacon, its structure rendered in gleaming metal that caught the light of Haven's sun. At the base, a simple inscription read, "For those who perished, for those who stood firm, for the sentence that saved a world." Governor Vance, now retired but still revered, attended the ceremony. After the formal speeches, a young journalist approached her. "Governor," he asked, "looking back after 10 years, did you know that one sentence would have such an impact? Did you plan for it to become a galactic warning?" Vance smiled slightly. "Young man, what you need to understand is that it wasn't just a sentence. It was a promise, one that humanity has always kept throughout our long and often bloody history." She gazed up at the memorial, her eyes reflecting the gleaming spacecraft. "When pushed to our limits, when our children are threatened, we don't compromise. We don't negotiate. We survive." As Haven's sun set over the memorial, casting long shadows across the gathered crowd, ships from a dozen worlds orbited peacefully overhead, traders, diplomats, and visitors. Among them were even vessels from the former Cathar territories, their crews now free citizens of independent worlds. And in distant sectors of space, where other expansionist empires plotted their conquests, military strategists studied the Haven defense with wary respect. The records of High War Master Jacral's defeat were required reading at war colleges across the galaxy. The lesson they contained was simple but profound. When confronting humans, never push them past the point of negotiation. Because humans don't negotiate with murderers. They eliminate threats. And they never, ever forget